Hi guys, Kirk and Jay here with kirkgiordano Plastering. Today what I want to show is an age-old question. We've been getting this since I've been in business. I thought, man, why not just show it once and do a video, and that way when folks ask, you could show it to them on video instead of doing samples all the time. What I'm going to do here, guys, we're doing a two-coat system, a scratch and a brown, and they said I want it smooth, and I said, well, how smooth do you want it? Do you want a scratch and a brown and let it cure and do a Santa Barbara or BMI marble or a smooth finish like that? Or do you want a two-coat system? He says, I want a two-coat system. We're going to paint it, and I want it as smooth as you can get the two coats. So I thought I'd show you folks how smooth we can get the two coats. Some do's and don'ts. First thing we're going to do is, I had this board set up on the ground, and Jay said, hey, Dad, do you really want to bend down? And I said, hell no, not if I don't have to. So he set me up here. What I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to scratch this out. I want to simulate exactly what we're doing the best way possible, and that way means I have to do, my first coat at 3/8 and then my second coat at 3/8. So right now I'm going to do all these squares. I won't bore you with doing them all, but what I'll do is this one's going to be a hard rubber float finish. That's using this after it cures to show you how smooth we can get it, and hopefully Jay can zoom in with that camera and show you a little bit better. This is going to be a light float finish. This is going to be a heavy float finish, a little extra water, and this is going to be a steel trowel finish. I'll take my steel trowel and I'll finish it. What happens if you use a steel trowel with a scratch and brown? It cracks. Is that normal? Yes. That's why what they do is they put two coats. They do a scratch coat, they allow a scratch coat to cure, then they come with a second coat, and that also is allowed to cure. And what will happen with those two coats? Naturally, during the drying process, which is 48 hours for a scratch, about, I would say, we usually go a week minimum to 2 weeks to 3 weeks in the winter to allow the brown coat to cure if we're going to do a color coat. So what I'm going to do here is get these coats on, finish this one up here, clean it up a little bit, put my scratch marks, allow that to set for a little while. Then we're going to come back and do the follow-up coat. I'll show you that when we get to that point. Okay guys, we got that scratch coat set up. Feel like I'm back in apprentice school. We had to do a lot of these samples. A minute ago I was kind of nervous about putting these finishes on because I thought this board was going to flip, but that's a pretty solid already. So now I'm just going to go ahead and brown out these squares, and I'll show you what the heck I'm referring to with these different finishes. Okay, we just spread this guy out. Dan, what are you doing, dude? Supposed to be working.
It's lunchtime. Just because you work on lunch doesn't mean I have to.
Well, that's one way to spend your lunchtime in 100-degree weather. Then again, Jason and I are showing you guys how to do this. I couldn't have picked, well, all depends on how you look at it. It's a hot day, but I don't mind working in the heat. I'd rather work in the heat than, say, 40 degrees or the cold. I actually love the heat. Plus, it's helping this sample dry out. Get back to where you started. Blam. That's for sure this little A-frame we set up won't flip now because it's pretty sturdy. All right, guys, what I'm going to do is, as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to show you immediately what I'm referring to as far as these textures. And should I wait 48 hours and come back and show you? I could, but I think you guys will get the point. Well, I hope you will, because again, I'm going to use this video here to show what you can and what you can't do and what to expect from me or anybody. It doesn't matter who's doing your stucco work. If you tell a fella, hey, all I want is 2 coats, well, besides a skip trowel finish, I'll show you what we can do as far as to get it smooth. Now keep in mind, guys, I've done houses, I've done a few custom homes, 8,000, 10,000 square foot houses, and I've had people say, Kirk, I want a hard steel trowel finish. And I tell them all, well, if you want a hard steel trowel finish and you only want the 2 coats, you know that when the scratch and the brown cure, naturally it's going to hairline. The degree of hairline depends on, say, the house. If it's a brand new house on 3 stories, new foundation, that house is going to crack because of settling. If it's a 50-year-old house, 3 stories, it's going to likely crack less. Anyhow, I think I'm getting the feel for this right here to see just how much time is necessary. I can look at all of these coats and determine when to do my finish. And so, stay with me, because as I'm just trimming out the corners, making it look pretty, which is not necessary, it's also giving me a chance to get a feel. I'm feeling this out and seeing when it's ready for the rest of my so-called smooth finishes. Okay, guys, stage we're in right now is some of it's ready, some's not, but I don't need it completely ready to show what I'm trying to do. Okay, guys, let me show you a few things. These are hard rubber floats. Hard rubber. That means they're rubber and they're hard. This is a plastic float. It's for polishing, usually interior. These are swimming pool trowels when you're doing swimming pools. You may have noticed I use these quite a bit. I fancy them. They're great. Square trowels, sponge floats. Okay. Now Dan walked by earlier. He says, Dad, I can't even make out what that is. How the people on the camera are going to do it. This is a hard rubber float, what I'm going to show you up here. Hard rubber float finish. Down here is going to be a heavy float finish. That heavy just means a lot of water. Up here is a light float finish. A little bit of water, so it comes out a lot smoother. The grain is going to be very fine. This is going to be very heavy because I'm going to use a lot of water. Over here is just going to be a steel trowel finish. All right, I'm going to take the hard rubber float. These are hard rubber, guys. And now this is for a 2-coat system. We can do an entire wall like this. Now again, if we do the entire wall like this, it kind of looks like a, well, you can still see the grit, guys. There is some grit because you could only float sand so smooth. Just like when you trowel it, you could only trowel down so smooth. So the sand, if it was interior plaster, yeah, you can make that pretty smooth. I don't like to use the terminology glass, but you could get it interior much smoother. On exterior, you have sand to deal with. Even if you use a finer sand, which tends to crack more, you still have sand. Now that's what we call a hard rubber exterior 2-coat float system. Now I'll start up here, a light float finish. Now I have one of my floats in a bucket of water right here. This one's got water in it. So if I hit this, the water's going to drip down here, and that's not what I'm looking for. These are both dry. In order to prove a point, I will just use a dry float. And basically what I'm doing is I'm bringing out a little bit of sand. I'm straightening the wall out, compressing it, and bringing out a little bit of sand. And I can bring the sand out twice as much or half as much. But this is what I consider a light float finish. It was just very light. We just keep going over it, then we let up. And if I wanted to, I can get it even smoother than that by allowing time or just coming back with a dry float. Time, and since I'm working against time, meaning I'm doing all this right now rather than 3 separate days, that is a light float finish done with these green sponge floats. Okay, I will do this one here. This is a heavy float finish. Or you can go medium or heavy float finish. Now, the idea is put some water on it, guys. Now the water brings out the sand or aggregate. Okay, it's bringing out the so-called aggregate. Aggregate's just a fancy word for sand or rocks. Portland cement has sand. Concrete has rocks. Both made with Portland cement. The only difference is the aggregate size. Okay, now you see that brings out a lot of the grit. If I want to bring even more, I just put more water. See, and just, I could leave float lines in it where you see the lines, or I could just go over it a few times where there's no float lines. But you get the idea. Okay, now that is a heavy float finish, and this is the less likely to crack of all of them. But will they all? Absolutely. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to show you guys is a hard steel trowel finish. And I could use a square trowel or the other trowel. Now this here, again, you could only steel trowel sand so much. Again, I stay away from that terminology, glass, because this has sand in it. This is mighty smooth right here. What happens with the mighty smooth two-coat finish? This, when it cures or cracks, but we don't have that time and we're not going to show that. I'm just going to explain it. You will get cracks in it, hairline cracks. Like when I say hairline, like the hair on your head. It will crack, especially under windows and doors, if you just do a two-coat system. When I worked union 30 years ago, we had slickers like this, two-hand, and we would slick the houses down. And that was when I was working for McDermott and Sealy, Danny Smith Plastering, a lot of those big companies. And the slickers, we'd do the scratch coat, then the brown, and we slick it. And I remember saying, hey, isn't it going to crack? He said, that's not our business. Our job is to do a two-coat finish. Okay, guys, I want to refresh that video because Jay at the end told me, Dad, you screwed that up. He's also a licensed contractor, so he knows what I know, and sometimes I get sidetracked of what we're doing. We were doing a lot of things that day. Anyway, my old sample right there was discarded like yesterday's old newspapers. But the point I was trying to make, which I didn't get through so clearly, was that the top two finishes, the hard rubber float, the fine float finish, and the left one on the bottom, which are a heavy float finish, those are all breathable. The stucco can breathe. And when I was mentioning cracking, what I should have said was, to not scare the crap out of everybody, is that they were hairline, possibly the hairline like the hair on your head, but that's okay, because 28 days later you paint it, and the good quality paint will either bridge it or flood it, what we call, so there's no worries with that. What I was really trying to point out with that video yesterday was that when we steel trowel a brown coat, it doesn't matter what stucco company, contractor does it, if you steel trowel a brown coat, now what you do is you seal it because it can't breathe. So those are the ones that usually will hairline almost every time. But if you're going to paint it, it's not such a big deal. These folks know it and they say, Kirk, we're not, it's okay. You've done work for us in the past years ago and we've seen some hairlines, but it's not a big deal. It's a two-coat system. So that's what I really wanted to point out. And by the way, guys, the majority of homes that were built have two-coat systems. Color coats come out in 1926, but they didn't always use those. So the majority of all the color coats in California that I'm aware of, or probably in the whole country, are two-coat systems. And will they hairline? Sure they will, especially where windows and doors cause heavy vibration. But it's not such a huge concern. I think Jay was right. I scared the crap out of too many folks. All you need to do is a good quality paint after the brown coat has cured, 28 days, is paint it, and a good paint will flood those. Anyhow, guys, my name is Kirk. I'm with Kirkgiordano Plastering. Hope that cleared it up. We thank you for watching, and as usual, we'll see you guys on the next one.